Welcome to Spoofers, the podcast where we talk about random things.
Thank you, ladies and gents, for tuning into another episode of Spoofers Lounge. And I get to say that, man, it has been so neat to bring forth a wide range of people into this show so far. You've heard a wide range of stories, people's futures, and just broad knowledge in general. And I'm going to say that this episode is going to be no exception. The gentleman that we have here this evening is the NHRA Division 4 Director. For those that are not familiar with that term, it means that he is the guy. And you would put that term in quotations. And I want to say that it's so neat to be able to have someone like him on the show. And I'm gladly introducing the man, Jonathan Johnson. Jonathan, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. Glad to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Fun stuff, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, who would have thought we'd be having a chat here at the railport, 6 months ago?
Well, that's an accurate statement. Railport brings a lot of people together in positive ways, man. It's good place down here, and it's fun to connect with people and various backgrounds and so forth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in this area, you get such a wide range of people and almost kind of like a small group of camaraderie, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
So some of us that already listen to the show, they kind of do know, but you are the NHRA Division 4 Director, and that involves pretty much all the drag strips in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, New Mexico, and that's pretty much the drag strip facilities in those states, correct?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have 14 drag strips in our division that are NHRA sanctioned. There's probably another 10 that are not sanctioned, but we kind of have small affiliations with pretty well everybody involved, which is great. But we do everything from coordinating ET bracket racing series for member tracks to the divisional level stuff. Obviously, we have our national event here at the Texas Motorplex with the Stampede of Speed, which is 10 days of chaos in October. And if you've never been a part of it, it's definitely worth attending, whether it's the concerts or the drag races.
From whenever I attended national events, well, pretty much since the Motorplex became a place to where it is now, it's that Stampede of Speed has really become a thing, just not just at the racetrack, but here in the city. It's like a whole week of festivities going on.
It really is. And as I've gotten to know Billy and Christy Meyer even more, and what their vision is for involving the communities here around us, it's really impressive. I mean, you have a cattle drive in downtown Waxahachie. I mean, that's not exactly things that we'd say in 2025. But we have a fan fest in downtown, and if you come out to the concerts, there's everything from bull riding to drag racing to music to arts and everything in between. It's a great different feel, and it's great whether you're into cars or drag racing or not. You get to be a part of something and get exposed to what we all love. I mean, obviously you grew up in the sport just as well as I did, and the opportunity to have this ultimately in our backyard is just something really special.
Yeah, it's really neat. It almost seems like it's a playbook from, I guess you could say, Formula One whenever they come into town, that it's a week-long festivities of just, you have your concerts, you have just everything going on, as well as the race being the focal point.
Yeah, 100%. And it really is cool because it's everything Texas. And we try to really expose not only our customer base from the drag racing side to what is all about Texas and our heritage and history and so forth, but also expose our customers as far as drag racers to things outside of that, and those that aren't a drag racing customer that just want to be the concerts that maybe have never been a part of it, get exposed to the drag racing piece. And it's really unique. It's really cool. The downtown businesses benefit from it. The local communities benefit from the influx of fans and race teams. And oddly enough, this is actually behind Indy, the most prominent event on the NHRA tour anymore, which is really cool. for somebody like yourself and myself that grew up racing at this facility and kind of have a personal history to it, it's fun to know that many people want to come visit us here.
Oh, heck yeah, it's and plus it's neat to see the other stuff besides, hey, you hear the radio commercial, hey, we got a drag race here, yada yada weekend, to where you're going in through downtown Waxahachie now, and you see the cattle drive, you see the bull with those massive horns walking down, you're going, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then you see the fuel cars, in the downtown, and it is really neat.
It really is. We joke a little bit because there's a mascot of the bull.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
And so they sell those stuffed animals at the drag race, and that's one of the more popular items they sell anymore, which is funny because as we all grew up as kids, we all wanted the plastic dragster to push around. They were usually torn up by the time we left.
Oh, yeah. It had the little Texas Motorplex,
Yep.
that decal on the side. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And those got destroyed, and if you lived in my house, they may or may not have got rocket motors put on them and run down the street, so the rocket launchers. But, we had our own iteration of jet cars.
As what kid isn't going to, I mean, absolutely. So you pretty much, so with all those tracks, besides, said it, the minus 10 or so, you essentially help run all of those tracks as well as all the divisional races and the national event that comes here once a year.
Yeah, I mean, the division director level or role has changed a little bit, and certainly our member tracks are their own businesses, and we try to help with programs, is the ET Bracket Series and Junior Street and Junior Dragster and so forth. So I don't want to put out the implication that I help run the facilities because that's not necessarily the case, but we are there as a sounding board and help make sure that those tracks are successful in whatever manner it can be. And obviously the sport's changed. I mean, next year will be the 75th anniversary of NHRA. And if you look back from when it first started, Wally Park's vision in 1951 was to get people off the streets. And you had these peaks and valleys of the sport over the last 70 years. And ultimately, we're in a unique time where you actually have factory supercars for the first time since like the 60s. And so street classes and, what if they want to refer to small tire events, the more stock looking vehicle that has power adders and stuff added to it had more events now than they've had probably in 25 years, which is phenomenal for the sport. For a person that was never involved in it, or his family wasn't involved in it, there's ways to get involved again, which is great, for the car culture in our sport and NHRA and drag racing in general.
Yeah, 'cause I want to say most new coming, I guess you could say the younger or not even want to say the younger generation, but even just like a newer person wanting to get into drag racing, they don't quite understand bracket racing. They understand, hey, I got a car and I want to go down the track, and I understand I want to go as fast as I can. And the street outlaw craze kind of said, hey, I got a big tire, I got a small tire. Okay, that's almost kind of like what I want to do now. Whereas I know whenever I tried to talk to people years ago about bracket racing, they looked at me like I was just, speaking German to them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I kind of go. I mean, those of us that grew up in the sport that started in that style of racing certainly understand it, and it's a language in itself with the terms and so forth. But it's tough to get into nowadays. I mean, technology is so good anymore, that you go to a super pro event, you got to be pretty dang good to go 4 or 5 rounds. And even off the bottom, so a standard foot brake type tree, you got to be pretty tough on. We've got a couple of different iterations now with the sportsman classes and so forth that help that out, that are true organic style foot brake racing, which is great. But bracket racing's tough. I mean, it's
humbling. Yes.
That's a great way of putting it. The sport as a whole is humbling. It's one of the few sports that you can be the best one weekend and get completely annihilated the next and leave tucking your tail.
Yes, I have been on both sides of that. By God, I can write a book on that one for sure. And I just know that it seems now it's almost easier, like regarding bracket racing, everyone says, okay, I have like the index racing has increased on the local level. Like, you have your 7.0 racing, you got your 6.0 cars, and you got the faster ones that go like a 5.0. And it almost seems like that is the new, I guess, trend of, I guess you could say bracket racing, but it's an index car now. And it seems that the younger generation can relate more than that than just somebody putting a shoe polish on the side and going.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's interesting because there's a lot of index racers that will not adapt to the term of bracket racers. And it's no different than an NHRA class racing with stock and super stock. Class racers do not consider themselves bracket racers. And so I kind of laugh sometimes because there's this odd battle in those two categories that they don't want to be considered a bracket racer. But ironically, this year we actually added some index classes to our bracket finals. We kind of looked at what was popular in the surrounding states, and we added a 580 and a 7.0 championship to our race of champions, and we wanted to add the 530 program, but there's certainly a crowd that kind of has a stranglehold on that category, which is great. Our intention there was never to take anything away from programs that were working. It was really just to add to our local member tracks that had successful index programs that wanted to expose their racers to the bracket finals and this side of things and give them a chance to race for a Wally. So it was good. I mean, we were pretty pleased this year. We just did it in a race of champion style. So each track could send their top 2 points earners in 580 and 7.0. And we had 20 participants in 7.0 and 14 in 580. And we were pleased with that. I mean, the most you were going to have was going to be, I think, 22 or so in each, 24. And we were pleased with the participation. The racers seemed to enjoy it. And it's a good segue. It's a great opportunity for people to get a taste of both sides of it and have some fun with their racing family.
Absolutely. And it's a great way. I mean, obviously those guys are still tough in all classes that do it, but it is a great way to be like, okay, hey, I run a 7.0 car and I see these guys doing this. Okay, I'm going to go to a divisional. Okay, well, I see Super Street running 1090. Well, 7.0 ain't too far off the mark at 1090. I might be able to start dabbling, doing something like that now, or whatever the case might be, to kind of get them into the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And those categories are kind of unique. There's some divisions in some areas of the country that allow throttle stops and delay boxes and so forth. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the road you're on, our area is no delay boxes, no down track throttle stops. So these guys have had to tune their cars in, and it was pretty cutthroat this weekend. I mean, you pretty well had to be right on the index in order to win, and you had to have a light to do it. And it was cool to watch, and it's fun because you've got some older guys that used to be bracket racers that want to go index racing because they've got opportunities around their house, and it's something different, and it keeps them active in the sport, and it's great.
Heck yeah. So, man, it's kind of going off of the, I guess, the divisional director stuff, but from what I remember, that your family ran a dirt track in Houston. Is that correct?
It was in Beaumont.
Okay, in Beaumont.
Yeah.
And would that almost kind of like help you kind of like have like an outside of the box perspective of like, hey, this is how we ran or how the dirt track was ran, and then also you see how a drag strip is ran. It's two totally different approaches, and in the way that the racers conduct themselves, I guess you could say. Would it be almost like, hey, I see that, in the dirt track community, we ran this, it's totally different. Would that kind of be like a guide of like, hey, how you run anything with the drag racing program?
It really depends on how you kind of look at that bucket. I mean, at the end of the day, they're very similar, right? You still have classes of cars. You still have two sets of customers, one being the grandstand fan and the other being the racer. You're still trying to organize an event that you hope is promoted properly. You're still going off of a schedule. So they're very similar. And at the end of the day, whether it's our fans or our racers, they're all passionate about what we do. And you have to compartmentalize a little bit and separate the two just a touch. But at the end of the day, I was fortunate enough to do some dirt racing. I've done a lot of drag racing over the years, and I love them both, and they're both unique to themselves. But I guess from the promotion side, as long as you can put it in perspective of what you have to do to take care of your customers, that's the most important thing.
Okay. Okay. That's a great way to put it. So just kind of, we're going to change gears and look at the main here. Okay. So you were and did still a racer, and you started from a previous conversation. You started running the junior director program when it first came out,
I did.
and you've ran several different sportsman classes. And now, I believe the last class you ran was alcohol funny car for some time, right?
Correct.
And now that you run all the different classes, and you're essentially, I'm going to say, you at the divisional level, you're going to be, running the show. It being on the other side of the tower now, do you feel that you have a grasp of like what the majority of the racers want to see in a race compared to just having somebody dictate down, hey, y'all are doing this and you're going to mush forward?
I think so. One of the things that's tough about this role is you have to separate a little bit of being too much of a racer, and then also being an operator. From our seat, um, I still think like a racer, I guess, is the most important thing. So start times are important, but I also have to worry about my staff and how long we've been on the clock, how the run of the day is going to go, what time are we going to end, what do we have going on, make sure all the pieces are in place to do so. What do we have as far as time for delays and so forth. So when we look at our entire weekend, it's really about flow. And then on top of that is planning for the unknown. We're constantly looking at weather and trying to have an idea of what we need to do, make for adjustments there. And then depending on what you get for weather, what does that look like for the delay? Um, we were in Ennis earlier this year for a double divisional and ran into a bunch of weather Saturday and Sunday. And I can usually make up if I lose a third or a quarter of a day pretty easy, but it's really hard to make up losing two portions of 2 days. Um, but you also have to take into consideration your customer's time and efforts and so forth. So when you're 4 or 5 rounds in and it's 8 o'clock at night, do you call a show and have them try to come back or finish at another event, or do you just try to find your windows to get through? And for me, this is where the racing background comes in, is that I work really hard to make sure that I'm doing right by people and their time and their commitments to coming back, because obviously these races pay decent in the final round, okay in the semis, but quarters don't pay great. So are you going to have somebody spend $500-600 in fuel and stuff to come back another time? And I don't think that's the right thing to do. So we obviously just constantly try to fade and juke as we need to with everybody in mind.
Okay. And like going on schedule, like I would assume there's almost like a set time that, hey, each pair of cars take a X amount of time going down the track. Is that kind of like what the formula that you guys use?
It is, and every category is a little bit different. In an ideal world, we want to run 100 cars an hour. Depending on some classes, it moves that number around. But like if you look at last weekend, I think on Saturday, we ran 1,281 pairs that day.
Jeez.
Um,
That's also 8th mile though.
yes, yeah, it is, and it was an extremely long day, but it kind of puts it in perspective of where we are and what you can do, and as much as we want things to always be as smooth as possible, sometimes there are things that happen that are beyond our control, and from my seat now, the main thing is try to make the best decision we can for everybody involved. And there comes a lot of stress with that I put on myself, is to try to make sure that we're making the decisions that need to be made and thinking through it in a manner that needs to be thought through.
Okay. And So I would imagine also like when they have like the regional events where you got the alcohol cars, that's also going to add a substantial amount of time to the show. I would guess you could say, correct?
It does. As obviously you mentioned earlier that I ran alcohol funny cars, so I had a pretty good list of friends in that group and so forth, and that was one thing that is we needed to clean up a little bit. And so we changed the way that we run those classes and the times that we run them. And there's a lot of communication with those guys to be sure that they know when we're running, not only for them, but so that we can get them through efficiently as we can. Um, Obviously, different categories have different crew requirements, time requirements between rounds, and so forth. And so, when you're setting your schedule, you have to be mindful of that and make sure that you've got the time and the ability to turn them around as you need to. And then also as you get later rounds, that you've organized your schedule well enough to keep the show moving, and not have a whole lot of downtime.
Sure, yeah, because we start getting to whether it's 10 cars in each class, there has to be some kind of downtime. And for the racer perspective, they need time to do whatever they got to do to get ready for the next round. But yeah, I can see where also if there's the people in the stands, well, they want to see cars go down the track still as well.
Yeah, and 100%. And with the great technology we have nowadays, people going live or live streams and so forth, you never want your live stream sitting super stagnant either. So, um, yeah, there's pressure whether you have people in the stands later at night or not. There's pressure to keep the entire show moving, get it done. Um, and so much of this sport, as you know, is also not what goes on the track. It's also the evening time, the camaraderie with your friends and your fellow racers, and the barbecues and telling stories and going to dinner and so forth. So
Absolutely.
we try to pack our days pretty tight and get people done at a decent hour so they can enjoy that time as well.
And plus, also, Sundays when you get done, it's always a long drive home. I don't care where you're at,
Yeah, you can be 20 minutes down the road as long as 20 minutes down the road.
especially when you done got cracked first round for doing something dumb. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a very long ride. Yeah, but I can almost speak for every single racer that they almost want the same thing. They want to race in front of a packed house, pay no entry fees at all, and probably race for the same amount of money that the pros do. And obviously, that is not on the cards by any means. And does it, in the sport alone, is I don't care what class you run, whether it's a 7.0 bracket car, or you're running alcohol, you're running comp, you're running stock, super gas, whatever. The cost has gone through the roof. Uh, the local bracket guys, they want to have the latest and greatest stuff, and it just costs so much. And is I'll say that like it gets a little hard for the independent guy to kind of really do it a lot anymore, I guess you could say. Whereas now that you get these crazy electronic programs, like the NSD grid, where things will repeat every single time. And the alcohol cars, I mean, gosh, that stuff is, the technology on all the timing and everything has gone crazy as well. And do you see how anything has kind of like gradually pulled back throughout the years? Where I would say like regarding maybe entry, or not, I'm going to say entries to certain classes. 'Cause I know when I started 25 years ago, there would be, you know, 100 stalkers show up to a division. And it wasn't it wasn't a 2-race divisional.
Yeah, so I think you have a litany of things there that has changed some of that, and our car counts have been really pretty strong here lately, and we're thankful for that. The doubles have helped a little bit because you can get 2 races basically in 4 days rather than 1 and 3, whereas pretty well the divisionals had gone to. Um, y you know, from a national event side, it's interesting, and we have these conversations pretty regularly of what that looks like. On the national event side is is really tough. And there are people that think that NHRA is just trying to limit participation. That's not really the case. There's a lot that goes on with a TV piece anymore. And so once you get to certain days of the national event, and I can tell you that certainly Sunday is down to the minute of scheduling. And it's really, I don't even want to say it's controlled chaos behind the glass sometimes, because that's, I think, a little bit too calm.
All right.
But like this year, because of the All-Stars and everything at Ennis, we actually increased the quotas. So previously the quotas were basically 55 in the super classes. And I think they might have been 55 or 60 in stock and super stock. And you're going to fill up a little bit more than that because of past world champion provisionals and items such as that. But ultimately that's set to basically make a 64 car field. And because of the All-Stars and so forth this year, and working with the Motorplex and working with NHRA, we were able to push the quotas up to 80 for the super classes, stock and super stock. And then obviously Top Dragster Consortium has pushed to 40. But that entire week becomes so crazy because we run a divisional starting at noon on Monday, finish the divisional on Tuesday. We start the national event on Wednesday. You start JEGS All-Stars qualifying on Thursday. You get into eliminations Thursday night, Friday morning. You're in All-Stars all day on Saturday. Sunday, you're in regular eliminations. I mean, you can literally get 3 races in that week if you're in the All-Stars, which is awesome. But all that to be said, I think that when you're given the opportunity in certain events, most of it the reality has to do with venue size anymore. In 1986, when they opened the Motorplex, nobody had enclosed trailers. Most of the fuel cars were hauled in a chaparral, gooseneck, and a dually.
Right.
And so if we go back to that size of transport rigs, we can fit 1,400 cars to the Motorplex. But if we come with what we have now, you could probably fit 950.
And that's even after they included all the area.
Correct.
Back behind the scales. Yeah, the back. Yes.
And
Which they did a great job doing that. Like I quit doing the drag racing stuff right when they built that. And I will say that was so nice compared to being on the grass. That was so nice.
It was, and then it had its moments that over time it didn't get utilized as much, so it was pretty rough back there. And the Motorplex team went in last year and graded that entire area and came in and chip sealed roads, which certainly knocked down the rocks and the dust, which was kind of the concern back there. But to answer your original question, I'm sorry I kind of got sidetracked there. I think the tracks that can hold it, the participation's there. It's some of our divisionals, we had 450 cars at the doubles basically, which is pretty solid. But you have to keep it in perspective, because when they first started doing the doubles, they were in Topeka. What was the only double that they had? They had 700 cars, almost 800 one year. And so when you say I had 450, you almost kind of get deflated, but I still had 450 race cars.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Right. For 9 classes. And people are like, well, if you average that out, it's only 50 per class. Well, it's not, because your top comp and top classes are going to have significantly less than some of the other classes. So, you touched on it earlier, and what I'll say is I don't care if we're playing kids t-ball or we're playing with bicycles in the driveway or we're talking about race cars. The unfortunate thing is everything that we all touch anymore has gone up significantly.
Yes, it has.
And we're in a great country, and we have great opportunities, and products are better than they've ever been. And I don't care if we're talking about bearings, sealed bearings in your front wheels, your bicycle bearings, the hairbrush that you use. It's all better than what it used to be, but it all costs a little bit more. And that kind of goes back to talking about the bracket racing and so forth. There was a point in time that if you were within a couple of hundredths of your dial and you hit the tree, you were golden. And honestly, if you're worse than about 30 now and not dead on 5, you're probably going home. So I just think that as technology increases and gets better, and as competition ramps up, those of us that have that burning desire deep down to continue to do better are always going to push harder. And ultimately, we have this vicious cycle that continues.
Yes, you always want to beat the guy next to you in any sport that it is. You're going to do, and if you have that big drive, you're going to do whatever it takes to beat the guy next to you.
Right.
And, talk about cost, though this isn't drag racing related, but whenever I first started racing a sprint car, our right rear tire cost in 2019, our right rear tire cost $188. And whenever I quit doing it last year, I was paying $400 a right rear. And that's just to show you of how much stuff has gone up throughout the years. And then, also you add people, especially in the drag racing community, they always want the latest and the greatest. They want the nicest trail. They want the nicest toter. And that's luxury. That's not a need. You can definitely crack somebody with an open trailer if you really wanted to. And we've seen it done.
100%. Most of us that have been in this long enough always remember we're not racing the trailers.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I hear. Hey, I mean, when I show up next year, I have an old Chaparral, and that was my old sprint car trailer. We converted to fit the dragster, and there we go.
Yeah, amen. And speaking of the sprint car deal, we had this conversation often with some of that. I mean, obviously you ran 305 and 360 stuff. You know that I've got a history in that and enjoy it a lot. And when we stop and you think about it, and if you're putting rear tires on every weekend at $700 a weekend, and you start talking about purses and so forth, and as racers, we want to demand more. But from the track operation side, everything that they touch has gone up as well, whether it's fuel, whether it's electricity, whether it's insurances, so on and so forth. It all cost. And that's the one thing I learned when my dad had the dirt track is when you swing the gate open, you're actually in the hole because you've spent all this time already, whether it's running the water trucks, whether it's maintaining the facilities, whether it's cutting grass, all of that has a cost associated with it. Even if your labor is zero, your time is still out there. You've got fuel invested, maintenance on that equipment, so on and so forth. And so, it's like any other business. It's, you have to work at it and you got to love it. And you got to hope you hit some home runs every now and then.
Yeah, just like, how you do track prep on dirt track. Well, for drag racing, you still got to do track prep. You're dragging it, you're spraying, you got to scrape all the old rubber off of it. So there's still a lot of work going on before they, same thing before they open the gates.
Yeah. I mean, depending on who you talk to basically, and obviously it depends on the size of the facility, right? But, a drum of glue, as we'd call it, which is PJ, figure $1,450 a drum. And when people talk about radial prep or whatever, all that constantly changes because to do a big tire or floppy tire or whatever you want to call it, drag race, your prep is significantly less than if you run a radial race. And there's guys that'll have over $3,000 in track prep to swing the gate open just in track prep, right? To set up for a radial race.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we call them flypaper tracks.
Yeah. I mean, there was several times I was helping a couple of guys and I'd go to guide them up on the start line and I'm like, I have never felt my foot stick to this track this hard in my life. Now, a national event, it just because all the sheer amount of number of cars and then you got the fuel cars, it gets really sticky as well.
It does, and obviously your national event prep is a little bit different than what you're going to have on. It's not going to vary significantly from a divisional event, or at least we try not to in our division. But your weekend track prep is going to change. Obviously, radial prep is different with the invention of rotators and so forth. And you start learning how to use your equipment to your benefit and what works and making sure the track basically pulls this Newton number significantly further out is what's really most important.
Okay. Yeah. Man, so we're going to look at the year 2026, 75th anniversary of the NHRA. And from what I watched, you got a couple of new tracks to NHRA Division 4 and schedule being made. What can like the divisional racers or even like the local bracket racers like expect to like, will there be any more tracks that will be on the divisional series now with it being, you got Amarillo and Pine Valley looks to be rolling again. And there was a lot of drama at Thunder Valley in Oklahoma City. And I remember there used to be always a divisional up in Noble as well at the end of the year. But is there any kind of hope to have some more races on the tour, or is it?
Yeah, look, I think the constant thing that we're always doing is looking at member tracks and do we have opportunities with facilities to add divisional events, or is there somebody out there that's not holding a national event that has the opportunity to do those things that works within those tours, right? For our division, I think I would be fooling anybody to say that we didn't need another divisional style facility to add one or two more races to. Right now, we're basically at 6 divisional events. I'd like to get back up to that 8 number.
Yeah.
But we also have to make sure that the facility is ready and capable of holding what we need to do. Obviously, it's been phenomenal to see Pine Valley coming back on board, to see the investment the Bailey family is making down there and what they're doing to kind of bring the facility. I don't even want to say back, because I honestly believe their vision is to make it better than it even once was at this point. And we've had a lot of conversations down there. Their methodology is really strong and what they're trying to accomplish. They have a path of where they want to be. And I don't know that we'll see a divisional there next year, but I think you'll see a national open, which is a great opportunity for our local racers to earn a grade point and race for some prestige and do it close to home. With Amarillo coming back on board, Jeff and his team out there has been super excited, and the progress that they've made in 12 months is nothing short of amazing. That entire feel of that place is completely different. There's some things that they need to be able to do over time to host a divisional event. They're aware of what that needs to look like, but I think that there's potential to see a national open there next year as well. We're looking at a couple of other locations who've expressed some interest in joining us, and we'll just have to see kind of how some of that stuff plays out. I mean, I don't want to put false hope in anybody's mind, but this is something that we work on nearly daily.
Okay.
And we're always looking for what works, what fits. And in reference in Thunder Valley, I mean, it's, I'm not going to sit here and act like what's kind of gone on up there hasn't been eye-opening for a lot of people, especially local racers. But I think given the circumstances, the best possible scenario has really worked out. You've got a gentleman who's had some success in other businesses and who is purchasing the facility and is excited to be there, is excited to continue with NHRA. You have a great contingent of local racers there that love the track and want to see it succeed. And they want to do the right things. But again, there's some things that need to kind of finish up and tie up some loose ends before we can make that commitment to put a divisional there. But I think that the intent is to certainly get one back.
Okay. I know Thunder Valley, that was actually the first touring divisional that my wife actually ever went and attended. And she thought it was pretty neat. You're definitely out there in no man's land for sure. I remember this going back, but like when I was you're so far out in the middle of nowhere when you're in Noble. And I remember having to do this when I was in college. I was in astronomy, and I was having to do all this stuff. And like, I'm in the motorhome and I get out and do something. I'm looking up and I'm like, oh my God, this sky is the clearest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's pretty cool. Plus it's a really neat facility, and I'd love to see it come out there. I'd love to go run back out there again. The weather always sucked when we ran a divisional there. It was either cold or it was raining.
Yeah. And It's funny because for a few years they swapped that event in the spring, and it ultimately didn't help that situation. It usually was cold or it was rainy.
That's Oklahoma for you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely it is. So, I think, as you look at schedules and so forth, you've got to find the ones that and the dates that work for those folks and make it the most sense. And that's what we'll have to do when we get to that piece is make sure that it makes sense and falls in line properly with people's travel plans and so forth.
Okay. I'd love to go there. I'd love to go to I've never had a race there at Pine Valley. I've watched where they did some of the funny car chaos stuff there before, or just live stream, and that's a really neat series as well. And that's yeah, I love watching some of that stuff.
Chris Graves is a guy I've known for a long, long time, and I sometimes sit back and chuckle at what he's done with Funny Car Chaos because that entire idea was come up with at a bar on a napkin, and I can see Chris having this conversation. He's like, "Man, it'd be really cool if we did this." And I could literally see Mitch King sitting next to him going, "Heck yeah, man, that'd be awesome." And then Chris goes, "Let's do it." And then that's pretty well how it all started.
That's awesome.
And to see what they've done with that series and to see them pack some of the venues that they have been and see the success and see the fan interaction that they have, it's just been phenomenal.
Now, I want to say there used to even be like a nostalgia funny car series almost back in the day, and you get to see all that stuff back. You get to see the guy running fuel. You get to see the alcohol car show up, and you get to see all the nostalgia cars out there as well. And I think that is awesome.
Well, it really is. I mean, the nostalgia series are pretty heavy on the West Coast still. And if you ever get a chance to go to Famoso or any of those facilities and watch them, it's amazing. And what Chris has done to kind of be able to meld these various disciplines here in Texas and the Midwest and so forth has just been awesome. And they really do put on a phenomenal show, and it's so much fun.
Oh, yeah, I know whenever I was, looking at it coming back into drag racing, and I was like, nostalgia funny car looks like fun. I would look at that, but unfortunately they're not very, not very big down here. Then I looked down and I was like, oh, there's funny car chaos. I'm like, that looks really cool, but I'm always scared of going 2 feet in on something that isn't a big organization.
Sure.
You get all this money involved and you're like, wow, this thing can really go belly up in no time. So then just kind of piggybacking off of that. So the growing outside racing organizations besides the NHRA, uh, you got IHRA that has done, they have a big kind of name out right now. Do you feel that that actually helps or hurts the sport and future of drag racing?
Look, I think no matter what, um, competition is good, right? Whether it's Walmart, whether it's the gas stations down the street, whether it's similar restaurants, whatever that looks like. And I think competition is necessary. Period.
Yeah.
I think there's some positive things that are going on in all the organizations right now. Um, and ultimately, when we talk about competition, it's good for the consumer. It's good for the sport. Um, and um, I, I, I personally don't have an issue with it. I think no different than when you saw the street outlaw phase, that brought a different crowd into drag racing.
Oh, for sure.
When you see the historical big classes of IHRA, like with Mountain Motor Pro Stock, I mean, there's been more conversation of Mountain Motor Pro Stock in the last 6 months than there has been in 6 years, and I think that that's positive.
Oh, absolutely. Because, it gives the guys that are running top sportsmen a chance to run something like that. And yeah, because Mountain Pro Stock, that was huge IHRA deal back in the day. And that's almost like how whenever, talk about conversations about class, like whenever Roger Brogdon did his comp eliminator bonus fund for a while. And there was more talk about comp than there was, gosh, I want to say since the 90s, like I remember showing up to divisional to be 8, 9, 10 cars in comp, and they were like, yep, that's comp. And all of a sudden now you see our cars having to qualify for a divisional. That's, I mean, that might not be something we ever get to see again,
Yeah, I think Roger has certainly put some life back in the category. And ironically, it's a category that really should have never struggled because it is 100% like an engineer's category. Um, there's very few. It's the category that encompasses everything. Is really what it is. And much like we talked about Chris Graves sitting there with a bar napkin, comp is kind of the same thing. Like there, if you're sitting there with your buddies, you're like, I'm pretty sure we could cut a billet Hemi in half and run it as a 4-cylinder
and be fast.
and be fast. There's a class for it.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
And, but it's also so intrinsic and so unique that I think sometimes people have a hard time explaining it because
It's so wild.
it is. You start getting the indexes and how far under the index you need to run, and it becomes a giant mathematical equation in your head. And you haven't even talked about like weight per cubic inch and what fuel you want to put in it yet. And then sometimes you just space out and you're like, I don't even remember where we started with this.
That is comp eliminator. It is. Besides your alcohol classes, which is all out. Hey, this is what I got. This is what we're doing. But like, it is probably the last class where you can actually innovate something and go out the back door and run it. Like it is. I'm going to say that's probably at least for NHRA, unless you're going to like the Factory X or Pro Stock or something like that. Less true sportsman class that you can actually run it whatever you want to run and go.
Yeah, it's the Bonneville Salt Flats of drag racing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Foolishly, I've decided that's a good idea to do. And I have one of those sitting in the garage now. And yeah,
I think it's great. I think it's a great idea.
my wife will agree with you because it's a lot less risky than driving a 360. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, I sure would hate for her to take a look at some of the stuff I spend on this thing, And then she'll listen to this episode. And she'd be like, so what did those new set of heads cost you? And I'm like, nothing, honey. They were given to me,
Absolutely. It's always less than 50% of real.
Absolutely. I'd hate gosh, if I kicked a buck, I'd hate for her to tell her, have her sell the stuff for what I told her it cost. Man, so you got these diehard racers and diehard race fans, and you almost every time you see like a social media post, especially like with NHRA regarding Top Fuel, they still run 1,000 foot, and everybody still cries about, oh my gosh, they're not going a quarter mile anymore. They're only going 1,000 foot. I personally don't have an issue with that. And if anything, I'll say, would there be any possibility of going to more 1/8 mile tracks compared to quarter mile tracks in the future? Because there is a lot more facilities that can host an 1/8 mile race compared to a quarter mile now. Like if you look around us, there's a lot more 1/8 mile tracks than quarter mile tracks. And of course, parking and everything else is an issue. But I'm sure the diehards might pop a blood vessel regarding that idea. But, you would have, just from what I would look, you'd have less wear and tear on equipment, show runs quicker, and you have a possibility of more venues to be out,
Yeah, I think that those are all valid points. And this is certainly something that comes up in conversation, but just as a rule of thumb, as far as NHRA, I mean, we're still going to continue to run divisionals on quarter mile, and our national events will be quarter mile and fuel to 1,000 foot, and and you're right, you do have some diehards that think that 1,000 foot racing isn't real racing, but I'm pretty sure that Brittany Force has made like 10 runs north of 340 right now. And everybody thought that when we went from quarter mile racing that it was just going to be horrendous. And, at the end of the day, if you talk with some of these fuel tuners and you talk with even some of the fuel engine builders, at the end of the day, the length doesn't change. They're still going to shorten the wick, right?
Yes.
You're gonna find a way to run them as hard as you possibly can. So 1/8 mile doesn't necessarily make it easier on parts once you start tuning to it.
Okay, I could see that. I mean, but I would say even like on the divisional level, like say if the track here in Ferris, XRP, it goes, NHRA, they have a lot of parking there. Say they want, okay, we're going to host a divisional, but it's only 8th mile. Well, a comp car, it ain't going to nearly go through as many valve springs or whatnot as a 1/4 mile track. But then again, you got the diehard racers. Like, I know when I ran a National Open one year, it was 8th mile when I was racing stock, and half the people wouldn't even think about showing up because they were like, "Oh, that's 8th mile track. I ain't gonna run no 8th mile race." And they're like, "I don't see a difference." I go, "Hey, I'm burning half the fuel and I'm racing for the exact same money. Why wouldn't I be about that?"
Yeah.
Of course, you're not in the car. You're in the car half the length, but still, like if I go and I watch an alcohol car go 3 point whatever pass, hell yeah, that's awesome, because that's what you see locally. Like, you go and you watch a pro mod, you're not going to watch a 1/4 mile pro mod go down the track. You see an 8th mile car go down the track, so you see it almost, the local fan, I guess, could almost more relate to an 8th mile time or 8th mile race compared to a 1/4 mile race now. Because, well, here, that's the only thing there is left. You got the Motorplex, but even still, I want to say when they do their test and tune, it's only 8th mile.
Yeah. I don't know what the future is going to hold, right? I mean,
Right.
I really don't. I mean, as I tell people, because I get asked this quite a bit, is our stance right now is still 1/4 mile competition, and do I know what 10 years from now holds? No,
No,
but
gosh, no. Yeah. Heck, if we had to answer that one, we would be in this situation right now. We'd be way ahead of the game. That's right. Yeah. So, man, kind of looking, going away from NHRA, man, the future of JJ, man, like, what is going to be your next move, man? You're going to keep racing as well as being the divisional director. Going to be the ultimate guy at NHRA one day, man. Like, what what's the move, man?
I don't know. I think it probably depends on the day you ask me. I mean, I'm still it. You ask my fiance Ashley. I mean, she'll pretty well tell you it. It could be day by day. At the end of the day, I still love racing. Um, I still love driving. I still love the competition piece. I'm also thankful for my job at NHRA because as truly a kid of the sport, I get to give back a little bit, and I get to be a part of help charting the course for the next generation, and also hopefully taking some of my experiences and putting it to positive use as we make decisions going forward. Um, I've always, I guess, been a guy that I want my cake and eat it too. So if I can,
True racer fashion, right?
yeah, if I can find a way to drive a nostalgia top fuel car, a bracket car, a dirt car, and anything else I want to in every given year, I'm pretty happy. So,
Okay.
again, I, I love motorsports. Racing has been my happy place since I was a young kid. It's always been my getaway from all the crap in life, if you will. Lifelong friendships, lifelong business relationships, um, and and I guess I don't want that piece to change anytime soon, or really forever, for that matter.
Yeah, well, regarding that, you go and you strap into a car, you're not worried about the outside world at all at that time. You got enough, I'm gonna say, problems to worry about whatever the situation at hand when you go ready to get strapped in that car. It is like an escape from reality, for sure. And then I will say, I got out of the scene, I'm gonna probably say around 18. And gosh, I can say I haven't really heard anything bad about you. And I still know quite a bit of racers. And, compared to divisional directors of the past, they honestly, you're the guy, you got the bullseye on your back. If something doesn't go right, oh my gosh, we're burning JJ at the stake right now, like, let's go get him. And I can say I heard that a bunch from previous directors, from in my day, but I I haven't heard that from you, man. Like, that must be you're doing something right?
Well, maybe it just hasn't been long enough yet. I don't know.
One or the other.
Yeah, one of the two. So, I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I do work pretty hard at it, and I carry a lot of stress with this, and but I try to use logic. I try to think through things the best that I can, and when I make a decision, I'm willing to have a conversation with a racer and talk about it. I mean, at the very core of this, we're all out doing this because we love it.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
We love it. We're passionate about it. We want to compete. We want to do these things. And so when you're stuck in scenarios or situations that you have to make a call as a person, as a human, if we understand why the call was made and I'm willing to have a conversation with you, we may not agree when we walk away, but we can at least walk away understanding where the other one stood.
Absolutely.
And that changes the conversation. That changes the scenario. Um, for me, it's ultimately our job as stewards of the sport is to make sure that we put on safe, fair, and effective races. And if I can do that and make sure that I'm treating my customer the way they need to be treated, then I would hope that we would have no choice but to be successful.
Yeah, I can that for sure. That you never, as a racer and you get whatever happened to you, obviously you're not in the wrong. The racer's never in the wrong. It's always, it's the director, it's the tech guy, it's whoever is they're the one in the wrong. I'm doing everything right. I'm here.
Right.
And no, so I think everything because I've even been on the other side where I'm definitely upset at somebody in some official light, and you have to take a breath and talk and be like, "Hey, this is why XYZ was made."
Yep.
And you might not be able to agree, but at least you have someone like take time to talk to you, like, "Hey, this is why," instead of saying, "Hey, pack your shit and get."
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I again, much like you just said, I've been the racer and I've wanted explanation and I just try to put myself in their shoes and try to talk through it the best that we can. And, um, that's how I continue to conduct business and I hope that it pays dividends. But I think between that and trying to create the environment we all want off the racetrack, which is ultimately why we're there,
yeah,
I think we'll continue to produce happy customers, happy racers, right?
yeah, you get happy racers, you're gonna put fans in the stands as well.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I'll say so. Whenever I want to say the first couple of years that they ran these sports nationals in No Problem, and just talking about alpha fans, I have never seen so many fans at a divisional in my life. I remember pulling up Sunday morning, first round, and the stands on the left side that no, I don't even know if how anybody even gets to the left side stands, but it's packed. And, this is stock, 9 o'clock or 8 a.m. Sunday morning. That whole stand is packed. You look on the right and it's at least 3/4 full. And my dad, he's like, "Oh my God, you got to be the first one there." So I'm literally probably the first 5 pairs down the track that day. And I'm going, "Oh my God, I've never seen so many people ever." And later in the day, you're going rounds, you go and you look and you see it's almost like a national where you see people lined up 3 or 4 deep all the way to the 8th mile mark. And you're going, "Oh my God, I've never seen this on a divisional level. It's almost like a surreal national event.
Yeah. What year was that?
Oh my gosh. So this was the first or second, man, was it, we're going to say,
So,
oh, 06?
yeah, so it was still when Pat Joffrion had the
Yes,
plan.
Pat Jeffron had it,
And
yes.
and Pat did such a phenomenal job promoting that place. By the way, they had the best boudin balls
Oh my
ever.
God, they were great.
And they can rattle off the guy who cooked them, but they were amazing and life-changing almost. But, yeah, look, no problem ever since it opened as far as fans go. It reminded me of Hallsville.
Yes, the old Hallsville. That was
That
my very first divisionals in Hallsville, yes.
and and it's interesting because when you look at some of these markets, those are the markets that can really do well on those on those type of events. And, we're working hard to work with track operators to come up with unique ideas to put divisionals back into a sellable show, even if it's a 4 or 6 hour show on Saturdays that makes sense. Because there's so much from a racing standpoint that gets packed into these events that it gets really hard to sell tickets as Friday, Saturday, Sunday
Sure.
when it's not a national event. And so we're working on ways to have a promotable 4 to 6 hour Saturday afternoon show.
I know whenever I was in college and I was working at the O'Reillys, they gave us tickets, just free tickets to go to the Motorplex on, for the weekend. So you had like Saturday, Sunday, for Saturday and Sunday ticket, whatever. I was racing there. I didn't have hardly any money. So that's actually, I got my wife in at the, my now wife in. And, I was like, hey, yeah, I can't, I don't have $45 for, here's a free pass, get in and we'll just, I'll just pick you up on the scooter with some get you, I think I probably did that for like maybe 5 years,
Resourceful.
But hey, you got to make it happen, man. But
Right.
when you're a starving college student and you're like, all right, I was able to save my I think the entry there was $160, and I had to save up for that because I was making $7.25 an hour at O'Reilly's, and save up, got the 160. My dad maybe buy fuel and everything else, so I'm flat broke. I don't even have money. If I had to buy something at a concession stand, I was willing to borrow like a quarter, and yeah, so I was like, oh, tickets, here you go. Come on in, I'll come get you. So she had to park on the other side. I got on scooters. Yeah, that's being resourceful at the time, but it was still pretty neat though. Like how they would, Saturday, we still didn't, because it wasn't a 2-day show. It was only a 1-day show. And so Saturday we're doing qualifying and you would see the stands, I'd probably say quarter packed at the Motorplex. I'm sure if you were running alcohol at the time, probably saw about the same thing. And at the Motorplex, it's a barn. It takes a lot of people to fill that up. So quarter, that's probably every bit of like No Problem or a lot of these other tracks that would be a sold out show.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's heck yeah. But, man, John, I just want to tell you, man, thank you for coming out to the show, brother. It was fun.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and it's fun to see what you're doing with the community with your show and obviously Railport and so forth. This is really, really cool. So I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're doing this. This is amazing.
Oh, I'm just glad that, someone of your caliber would even consider being with a lowly class racer like me out here,
Right. Yeah. So that's how we're gonna play this.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much for coming out, Jonathan.
Thank you.